we are talking The Scary House, also known as Das Haus. This is actually an Austrian movie spoken in German and Slovenian, and is a kind of family haunted house movie in some ways that will actually remind you a lot of Stranger Things. So what's the story? Is we have this single mother who her husband has passed away, and they move to this kind of new neighbourhood. I believe it's on the border of Austria and Slovenia. And this old sort of dilapidated house, which seems to be overgrown and covered with slugs. There's slugs all over the place. There's some graves just outside as well, which is also a little bit of cause for concern for the two children. We have the kind of the teenager who is kind of like initially the kind of like the mopey, kind of typical kind of teenager, and the younger kind of brother who is a little bit more innocent and stuff. So the movie focuses on Hendrik, who is the kind of the older teenage brother, and as the film progresses, we learn that there may be some kind of ghostly presence in this house of these kind of like these two young brothers who have lived there previously, and these kind of brothers seem to be communicating with the two living new brothers to try to get them to investigate their murder ultimately. And we wrap in a couple of other kind of like friends that they make, and we have a kind of a haunted house mystery. So what do we think about the movie? I'm going to go with my negatives first of all on this one. Normally I would go positives first, but I do want to go negatives first, because I do feel I just want to touch off some things before I forget about it. So to me, this movie was a fun film overall, although it had, I guess the main critique for me is that it sort of sets up a lot of things, but it never really pays them off. So, for example, we have like a bully. We have the town bully who's picking on Hendrik, who's the kind of like the kind of our central protagonist. And I was expecting this bully to get his comeuppance. No, that never happens. Then we get, like, for example, all the snails all over the place. I thought, okay, there's something going to go on with all the snails here. The snails are obviously going to play a part in the movie, and not really, to be honest with you. I don't really understand why they were really introduced. We have one scene where there's some snail poison and kind of like some salt, and that's used to keep the snails out, but it's actually for the ghosts. But the snails themselves, I thought, were actually going to play a part in the movie, and that isn't the case. And then, like, another example is we have these two ghostly brothers, and we learn the younger one is certainly more friendly, but the movie tells us that the older brother, or the ghost of this older brother, seems to be more antagonistic and more confrontational. But that, again, nothing really is done with it. It kind of sets it up, but the movie then doesn't do anything with it. So to me, that was kind of the main frustration with this film, is that it has all these things that it sort of sets up, and it does very little with them, or nothing at all. Outside of that, the movie's tone is one where I feel it's probably a little bit too young for out-and-out horror fans, and maybe a little bit too scary for young children. So it's kind of like a weird kind of hybrid movie. The nearest one I could kind of like relate this to is kind of maybe like The Lady in White, which was kind of a horror movie made for younger audiences. And I do think I still enjoy these films, but I just don't know who it's going to really appeal to. And ultimately, I felt the ghosts themselves had little to do with the actual plot. This movie is far more of a kind of a mystery and kind of like almost like a solving the crime drama than an actual kind of like ghost story. The ghosts appear in it, but they seem to have not a huge amount of actual influence on the actual story itself, and only kind of really appear just to kind of like to have ghosts in it. And whilst the actual bulk of the story itself is more these kids kind of investigating, a crime and things like that, just the ghosts kind of pointing them the way, so to speak. So it was a little bit kind of disappointing in regards to the ghost stuff. Again, I suppose because it is trying to accommodate a younger audience, it can't go too far into that, but it is what it is. But what does work for me I gotta say, I really enjoyed our characters here. Our 4 kids, Hendrik, who initially I didn't like, because he comes across as this really kind of mopey teenager. You think, oh, such a typical kind of teenager. But nonetheless, the actor did a good job of really making me care for his character and his relationship with his younger brother, who you really get the sense they are a good representation of an older and a younger brother. And I think they did an excellent job. And also these kind of 2 friends, Ida, this kind of love interest girl, and this younger boy, who's kind of like the comedy relief character, but he's still kind of quite a fun character and he's kind of on his own right. I also like the actress that played the mother. I thought she did a good job. The setting of this house is particularly good and looks really kind of like a rundown old house that you can totally imagining being, being haunted. Now, one thing I did like as well was the kind of, even though this is a family film, it's never a goofy film. So you can still watch this as a kind of an adult, and as long as you can appreciate it's not going to have any type of really, hardcore scares or gore or anything like that, the movie still takes itself kind of seriously. So you can still have a good time enjoying the kind of the storyline and the kind of the mystery. I would say the ghost effects maybe are a little weak, just on the kind of on the negative, I suppose. But it's kind of, again, it's done for a kind of a young audience. They're not trying to be necessarily particularly scary. So overall, I quite enjoyed it. I think sometimes like I said, there are some things here that I just think don't quite hit the mark. For example, we see a scene where Hendrik gets his foot trapped in some rocks, and it just seems like they're small rocks, quite easy to kind of move, yet he's kind of like in danger of death. And again, some of the setup here wasn't brilliant, but overall the movie itself has a great soundtrack, likeable characters, an intriguing kind of like mystery, and I think was overall a pretty enjoyable movie. So I'll give this one a 6 out of 10. Have you seen it? What did you think of it? Leave me a comment and I'll look forward to seeing you next time. Bye for now.